Hello and welcome. I'll just give it a minute or two. Welcome. If you can hear me, a thumbs up will be great. I hope everyone can hear me. And thanks, Kalisha, welcome to the live. And whilst we wait for a minute or two, thanks, Yesh, welcome. So, how are you feeling now that we're in June? How has the year been treating you so far? Drop it into the chat. Let's talk. And our topic today, as you drop that into the chat, the energy drain no one talks about, people who cost you more than they contribute. And that's our topic for today. So, how are we feeling now that we're in June? How has the year been treating you so far? Yesh says, tired. Yeah. I think a lot of people are feeling it. I had a little bit of a giggle over there, and it's not laughing at you, but yeah, people are feeling that tiredness. And I was just reflecting and chatting to my sister that already it's June. Where did half of the year go to? Kelisha says, shocked that we already in June. Exactly, Kelisha, but ready for a new month as this last month has been hectic. And when I speak to people, the word tired, hectic, and I thought when I was reflecting on this question myself, I feel rushed. I can't catch my breath. And it seems like our lives are so busy. I'm not sure if you feel the same as well. After the one thing finishes, then there's another thing. So, yeah, it's been a bit of a roller coaster of a year so far. So, as I said, the topic for today is the energy drain no one talks about, people who cost you more than they contribute. And please, as I speak as well, if you've got questions, pop it into the chat. I'll get to that as well. And please feel free to provide your own comments as well. So let's get into it. Before I say anything else, I want you to think about the last time you left a conversation at work and felt genuinely lighter, you felt clearer, and more ready to go. So that's the first scenario. Think about that. Now, think about the last time the opposite happened. You walked away slower, you're more tired, and maybe a little bit more cynical, and just a little bit more tired of everything work related. Now, here's the question I want you to sit with tonight. What did that second conversation actually cost you? Now, not just your mood, but and not just that afternoon, your output, your focus, your peace of mind, your energy reserve for everything else that's still needed from you. How did it impact you, the second um, kind of conversation? And that's what we're talking about tonight. And it's not about venting, and it's not a venting session, and neither it's about us talking about toxic people or office drama. But what does it cost you as an individual? So, welcome to the Midweek Reboot. It's so good to have you on. My name's Myan, and yeah, we've got an interesting session ahead of us. Let's participate, drop your comments, and yeah, let's get on with it. So, I've got a few reflective questions for you as usual. When I say difficult colleague, who or what comes to mind for you? So you don't need to name them, just notice what comes up. So when I say difficult colleague, who or what comes to mind for you? Drop it into the chats. And whilst you do that, I'm going to frame this discussion. And it's, as I said, it's not about labeling people or it's not about venting. And I think that's a negative way to look at it. We're here to think clearly about what this actually is costing you. When people are draining, what does it cost you as an individual? And what can we do about it? Because we need to move away from this is what's happening to me, but how can I positively manage the situation? And remember, we come across different people. You don't know what they're going through. And I always try to remind myself that. But they also take up mental space. And that leaves you with less for everything else. If a person drains your energy, then it's leaving you with a negative balance. So I ask the question, what, when I say difficult colleague, who and what comes to mind for you? And Yesh says directors, subordinates. So that's basically your team. Most people, to be honest, only one I can think of that doesn't cause me stress and actually helps me so much to get the work done without drama. Yeah. So, and I think they're also involved, they're also caught up in their own issues. So it creates that drama and it causes stress. And Yesh says, only one I can think of that doesn't cause me stress and actually helps me so much to get the work done without drama. And that's few and far between. When you have few people in your corner that you can totally depend on, and they can do what you request them to do, or you work so well together. The thing is, we all come with our personalities as well, and there's deliverables. We started this live out, and we reflected on how fast time is going. We use the word tired, rushed, and it's been hectic as well. So people are trying to get more done in a shorter space of time. Sometimes this people procrastinate. Sometimes people don't deliver as you want them to deliver. So therefore, you have situations where people end up being more draining than actually assisting. Okay. And as I was preparing this live as well, I thought back of my burnout in 2009, the 9-month project that I speak about that caused me hypothyroidism as a diagnosis. And, I had to realize that I was working in an environment where it was draining. So I had to look at that and look at how I could reset. So, also part of this live is what in our lives are draining our energy, who in our lives are draining the energy, and how can we manage that better? And keep that at the back of your mind. As much as it's not the person we're talking about, there's 4 patterns, and we see this in people. So we're not focusing on who they are, but what does that interaction with them cost you? So, for example, and I'm going to talk about four, there's the decision diffuser. Now, these type of people, the pattern you see is they can never land on anything. They can't make a decision. They pull you back time and again and revisit things that have been closed out, decisions that were closed out. And you waste energy re-entering a conversation that should already have been done. Have you come across such people? Do you know such people? Are you one of those people? I was thinking about an incident. It was one of the many years ago. I worked with a director, and we needed to work on this client report. It was this director, myself, and another colleague. We worked on it the whole day. We worked on it the evening. 11 p.m. passed, 12 a.m., 2 a.m. We're still at the office working on this report. Then at 5 a.m., finally we finished. We were exhausted, but the director insisted we need to revisit certain points. And you know what? The 5 a.m. version was not the best. We could have spent, we could have closed shop, gone home, come back the following day, refreshed, and worked at it. And you know what? This director was not a bad person, but this person didn't trust themselves. So then they kept revisiting the decision. So that's what we mean by decision diffusers. They keep revisiting a decision, and you thought it's closed, but it keeps coming up. Then the second one is the anxiety carrier. That person, now the pattern you see, they arrive stressed and they leave you stressed. So you came into the situation, you were focused, you had direction, but their urgency becomes your urgency, and their noise just displaces your focus and your direction. And you, that impacts you as well, and their anxiety leaks on you. So that's the anxiety carrier. Then you get the invisible underminer. I don't know if you've come across those people. They're not openly hostile. So I would say they may be passive aggressive, and they subtly erode. They reframe your contributions. And sometimes even they take credit for what you've contributed in a presentation or whatever. They don't give recognition to you. So these are the invisible underminers. And they never quite in your corner when you expect them or want them to be. And the fourth pattern you see is the micromanager. They constantly check in, and there's phone calls throughout the day. They hijack meetings and make everything about their control and about them. And what I've realized as well is the root cause is sometimes they don't trust themselves, that they have to micromanage and try and understand everything, and they don't leave you with that space to do what you need to do because they want to control everything around them. And the cost to yourself is you have to constantly update them, justify your actions. Then they interrupt your focus because they want updates, but they're not allowing you to do what you need to do. And then there's loss of autonomy and independence for you to do your work. Now that's quite frustrating. So those are the four patterns that we see in people. And it's not personality labels, they're patterns, and that is costing you. So you come across the decision diffuser, the anxiety carrier, the invisible underminer, and then the micromanager. So I'm going to pause over here and ask you a question, and you can share it in the chats as well. Which of these four feels most familiar to you? And what does dealing with them actually take out of you? What's the cost of dealing with them? So you have as a reminder, the decision diffuser, the anxiety carrier, the invisible underminer, and the micromanager. Which of these four feels most familiar to you? Who have you come across that has these patterns? Or do they have a mixed bag? And more importantly, I'd like you to reflect on what's that cost to you? Remember, we're looking at energy draining, energy that drains that due to people you interact with. Yesh says she's come across all, but particularly irritating is the mix of micromanaging and anxiety. And I guess because there's a link over there as well, Yesh, that if they're not trusting themselves, they want to micromanage you. And because they're stressed out, then they stress you out as well. And then they take as much out of you, and they don't trust the process because they don't trust themselves. Kelisha says, I think in my life right now, I'm blessed not to have those kinds of people around me anymore. And yes, when you say anymore, Kelisha, that means that you did come across those types of people. And when you are around people who exhibit those kind of patterns, it's about how do you deal with them. And that's great that you don't have those types of people around you, because it creates a difficult working environment and it takes a lot out of you. But then it's about, if you do come across them, and work is such that we come across such people, then how can we manage them? So the question is, why are you at risk? And these are some of the thoughts that I put forward. The more you perform, the higher you perform, the more you attract this drain, because you are a high performer. People want you to deliver, and then they'll push their issues onto you, their dysfunction onto you. And you tend to absorb other people's chaos and poor planning, because what do? You deliver. You have the can do attitude, and you do it despite and no matter what. But in the process, you're also absorbing somebody else's dysfunction, somebody else's chaos. So that becomes yours. And their emergency, they're pushing it down on you, it becomes your emergency. Because as a performer, they know you'll fix it. So therefore, the early morning calls or the late evening calls, the weekend calls, because they know they can push their issues onto you. You are the fixer, you'll get it done. And your identity is linked to delivery. So you never determine what that cost limit is. There's no boundary over there. You just take on, because that's how you are. You deliver, and therefore you're most at risk. Most of the time, the organization doesn't see the cost to yourself. Your manager doesn't see the cost to yourself. And you know what? neither do you see the cost to yourself, because we're like on autopilot. If you perform, if you deliver at a high level, this is your normal, so you continue doing it, but you don't realize the cost over the longer term. And here you need to make the cost visible, at least to yourself. If this person is draining you, what is it costing me? How is it costing me? So, my question to you, and you can drop it into the chat, is this: think of someone who leaves you drained. Okay? Did you think of that person? What does it actually feel like for you afterwards? In your energy, your focus, your mood? Okay. I know when people drain me and it costs me in my energy, I can feel that my energy is depleting. Sometimes it's also focus. I lose focus. And when you lose focus, it takes you a little while to get back on focus, back to that point where you can focus fully. And also, it can put you in a bad mood. Kelisha says, I'd probably say it leaves one drained energy wise. Yes, it does drain your energy when you come across somebody who who really drains your energy, so it impacts your individual energy. Yesh also says drained, tired, can't concentrate on the work on hand, and don't have the energy for it. And our whole mood changes. I can agree with that as well. I see it with other people. I see it with myself. And that's the cost we're talking about. People would cost you in energy, in your mood, and also your focus. So here are three moves that you can consider. One, name what's happening, not who's doing it, what's happening. When you describe the pattern, you can act on it. And when you describe the person, you're stuck. This person is frustrating. You can't change the person. But if you talk about the pattern that shows up, then that is something that you can perhaps put right. So, for example, I spoke about the decision diffuser. They can never land something. So, the pattern that you might have come across is they keep circling on an issue and never landing and agreeing to something. And that you can address it. That after this is what we've agreed to, at this point, let's close it. So, you're addressing the pattern. And yes, that person will still be the person that circles around something and will never be too sure. But in your interaction with them, you found the pattern that they show. So therefore, when you engage with them, you address that. And when you're agreeing on something, let's agree on so and so a point. In my interaction, the example that I used earlier with the director, where we worked all through the day, the night until 5 a.m. Now, in retrospect, I should have said, let's bank certain decisions. Once we've put down certain agreements in terms of the various bullet points, we close it, move to the next. We don't come back and revisit. So you can see the approach. The person will still not trust themselves, but once we've banked something, we close out and we move on. The second move is choose when and how you engage. You may know, so really, we don't get to choose who we work with most of the time, but you can choose when to engage with the person, for how long, and in what format. Now that's in your control, and use it deliberately, because you need to be in the driving seat of how and when you engage. Reduce unplanned, unstructured access to your time. And time is finite. How are you using your time? Who are you giving that time to? Who has access to your time? And your third move is put a number on it. So remember, I said, what does it cost you? So remember, 2 hours of lost output a week is more than 100 hours a year. So if you're giving 2 hours to a person in whatever form, that's 100 hours a year. And that's time you'll never get back. So when you see the number, how much of time are you giving away? And you cost it accordingly. That guilt lifts, because that cost becomes real, it becomes tangible. And this is how much time of your life you're giving away to somebody else. So therefore, it goes back to the second one. Choose when and how you engage. My question to you, and you can drop it into the chat, is which of these three is hardest for you to actually do? And what gets in the way? So I mentioned the three moves, and which one is the hardest for you to actually do? Name what's happening, or choosing when and where, how you engage, or putting a number on it. Have you thought about these three moves? Or do you just accept and just absorb what comes your way, and you don't really think about the pattern that's that you're seeing? Yesh says, haven't thought about these three, only recently learning how to set boundaries. Sometimes it's hard to do that with clients, but I will employ this now. And boundaries is so important. It's about determining how you want to use your time, utilize your time, and give time away. And that's when you need to put in boundaries, especially if those boundaries are impeding on your peace of mind. Because we're talking about people draining you. What's the most important thing is your energy. And if people are taking away your energy, then it's important to see how you can protect yourself. So the fixes that I'm proposing is, firstly, you're not obligated to be available 24/7. And you should really not feel guilty about it. Work will be work, but also there needs to be, like Yesh said, boundaries. Just recently, I conducted a focus group, and certain people were asked to be available during sick leave or even leave. And my thing is, where is their boundaries? You need to have those boundaries. There needs to be planning around it. You can't be available 24/7. And what I'm finding as well is the abnormal is becoming normal. So when you're on sick leave, you are expected to get onto your computer and do something. To me, that's abnormal. How, and people just, the response I got from somebody is, this is how we've always done it. This is what's expected of us. And to me, that means the abnormal is becoming normal, which is not right. So we don't need to be obligated to be available 24/7. What you can do is give what is genuinely expected of you, but you must protect the rest. So you need to know, and it comes back to boundaries as well. You need to know, I'm giving of my best and what's expected of me, but I need to also protect myself. And in that protection of yourself, you need what works for you. And remember, energy is finite. So you need to use it with thought. So here's some practical moves. Identify what you will take on and which to hand back to where it belongs. You know what I see as well is people will very easily push things onto you, be it your senior onto you, or even your subordinates and team members onto you. So you need to know what belongs to you and what you should hand back or what you should say no to. And I saw this really nicely done by one of the teams some time back, where everything came to this one team. There's a whole value chain, and they're at the end of it, and they do the payments, but everything landed in their department. So what the person responsible for the department did is looked at the roles and responsibilities. If you're responsible for something or a certain team is responsible for something, let's have that discussion, and we know this resides with you. And what am I responsible for? And what is my team responsible for? And that was well defined, and then it was communicated like that. You know what this team's responsible for, so then they don't need to take everything on board. So like that, like how this team did it and identified their roles and responsibilities, you as an individual should know what is for you to do and what belongs with other people. And you know what? A lot of the time we feel guilty. Let me just help. Even though it's not mine, let me take it on. Because you guys, you perform, you like to do, you like to help, but it doesn't belong on with you. So let people do what needs to be done. There's a difference between helping every now and then, or and then it being pushed onto you because you're expected to do it because you always do it. Okay. Say no when it genuinely makes sense, clearly without over explaining. My question to you, do you have a difficulty saying no? Do you feel guilty saying no? Or do you just take on? Are you able to push back, to hand back what's not yours? Personally, I do feel guilty if I don't, guilty sometimes to say no. But what I've learned to do is reprioritize or look at moving things around, discussing deadlines as opposed to just taking it on. And I look, so I wouldn't necessarily just say no, but I will have a discussion as to when I can actually deliver if I take on a piece of work. So I'd love to know if you have a problem saying no. And here again, when you're given unrealistic deadlines, negotiate those timelines there and then, not afterwards. So think about it, negotiate those unrealistic deadlines, and come to something that you can live with. Because if you said yes to something, then know that you need, then it's on you, right? So talk about it and negotiate those timelines. Yesh says, these days I push back. If I don't have capacity, I don't take on. I did have a problem though previously, which caused a lot of stress and impacted my health. Yes. I think it's important to push back. How you push back is also important. It's not that you're being difficult or coming across as difficult, but you see, you said an important thing over here is that previously it caused a lot of stress and impacted your health because you didn't push back and you didn't have that capacity. There's only so much you can do as an individual. Kelisha says, I used to feel guilty too when I said no, when I say no. But the team I'm blessed with now doesn't give me unrealistic tasks, so I'm great now. And it's so different, right? When you work with a different team, there's expectations. Also, what I like is create a rhythm and people can expect how you work and you can work in accordance. There's a cadence in how you work. So it's important to know when to say no, how to position your no, how to negotiate those unrealistic timelines, and have a discussion. I've got 5 things on my plate currently. Which one do you want me to do? If now this is coming onto my plate, and if you're working with different teams, also have that kind of discussion with them. Or whilst I'm at it, when you're planning, it's important to plan ahead as well, so then things don't land on your table. Make them aware of things that you're busy with. Are they going to deliver anything to you? I know if I need to do a communicate to or work on a communication and develop a communication, I indicate my lead time is 2 days. Give it to me and then I can turn it around. I can't, yes, there will be exceptions. Last week there was a request that had to be turned around within the hour, and I'll do that. That's an exception. But generally, I have a 2 day lead time, and I can actually give you my best work by me operating that way. Now, here's another big one. Do not take work calls during your evenings or weekends. That is your personal time. And yes, there's exceptions, but you can't take work calls during your evenings or weekends. You never get downtime from work. So what happens? Burnout, you overloaded, you stressed. Therefore, you need to give the time to yourself, evenings, weekends. It can't, you're not a robot. So you need to know how to give yourself that time. And yes, people would take advantage. But how are you managing your energy? Turn your phone off or keep it on silent during weekends. Protect your recovery time. So, this is what my sister does. She puts it on her phone on silent because there's no boundaries um, from her workplace. They'll call her in the evenings. And remember what I said, people's emergency becomes your emergency, people's dysfunction becomes your dysfunction, their lack of planning becomes your issue to deal with. So, with her, even if she hears the phone buzz, that creates some anxiety. What now? So, if it works for you to put your phone on silent and that allows you to recover and not um, be in the work mode the whole time and being anxious about what they're calling you about, then you need to put your phone on silent. It's whatever will protect you. And remember, boundaries are not walls, they are the conditions under which you do your best work. When you put boundaries in place, that's when you can focus, that's when you can deliver properly. And you're not working from a place of stress, you're working from a place of strength. And you're giving to yourself, but also the people who depend on you will also benefit by you putting down your boundaries. So think about the people who drain you. What patterns come across when they engage you? And then what boundaries can you put in place? So, my question to you in the chat is, what's one boundary you know you need to set, but you have been putting off? And what stopped you so far? Is there a boundary you know you need to set, but you've been putting off? And what's been stopping you? And my other question, as you're putting that in, is looking back, where has this cost you most by not putting those boundaries? Where has it cost you most? And what would you do differently now? And Yesh spoke about it as well. By not pushing back, it caused stress, it impacted her health. Me in my 2009 project, I didn't put down boundaries. I got to the office by 6:30 a.m. I worked throughout the day. I got back home by 7. I left the office by 7 p.m., got home, had a quick bite to eat. And usually, if you're working flat out, if you're in meetings, by the time you get home, you're tired. You tend to eat badly. There's no time to cook food. So you eat whatever, or you buy something on your way. You eat junk food day in, day out, don't have time to exercise. Then I'm on my computer again working. I didn't put boundaries. And yes, it was that type of work where you had to deliver, deliver, deliver. But as I said, we're not robots. And you will, I ended up being burnt out and you would be stressed. So you need to determine what that cost is. Yesh says, I now say no to work that comes to me unrealistically late. That has taught them to be mindful of when things come to me. And I think that's beautiful. I'm going to repeat that. That has taught them to be mindful of when things come to me. What Yesh is actually doing is she's teaching them again, she's teaching them how to engage her. By her saying no to those unrealistically late deadlines, she's teaching them that in future, if you want my assistance on a piece of work, then give it to me with a realistic deadline. Otherwise, I'm not taking your call, and then they know better for the next time. Also, I refuse to work at night or on weekends. And yes, that's protecting your time. You have delivered on your side. So it's not about running this body 24/7. If there's any questions, I'm towards the end um, of my talk. I'm not sure if there's any questions you want to ask. I'll just give you a minute or so. And the reason I decided, whilst you do that, the reason I decided to do this topic is I see many people, their energy is drained because of work. And as I said, energy is finite, time is finite. So, how we utilize that is important. And I thought it's important for us to discuss it as well on this platform. Yesh says was really helpful sessions as always. Um, thank you. You most welcome, Yesh. So here's what I want you to take out of tonight. The one thing. If you when you leave this live, leave with this one thought. And Kelisha, let me take Kelisha's comment. I don't go through this currently, but I'm so glad that I joined the live because it's really taught me a lot. And yes, knowing this arms you for the future because you will come across some of these people who exhibit these patterns. And it's about how do you protect yourself in such a situation. So, the one thing I'd like you to take out of this live, don't let anyone else dictate how you spend your energy. Yes, you're working, and you give your best to work, but they can't dictate how you spend your time 24/7. So I said there's energy vampires around, and they're real. Be mindful of them. Learn to identify those energy vampires through the patterns that they showcase. And you, as a high performer, are often exposed to those types of people. So you need to protect your energy, and it's not a weakness. You should not feel guilty about it. It's not about being selfish. It's you protecting yourself so you can give off your best as well. And before I end, just a quick question, because I'd like to make this practical as well. Tell me in the comments, what's the one boundary you're committing to protect this week? What is the one boundary? Be it work, be it personal. What's that one boundary you're putting in place this week? And Yesh says, work, going to use your principles taught today and make it practical as well. I used the phone example. Switch your phone off. You don't need to feel guilty if you switch your phone off during the night. Okay. So thank you so much for joining me. Join me every Wednesday at 8 p.m. South African time for the Midweek Reboot. I hope, I trust that you benefited from this discussion. And if you have not yet subscribed, please do subscribe. I bring, I do videos on a Monday and a Friday every week as well. And always remember, you matter. Thank you so much for joining me. I'll see you at our next live. Bye for now.